The fire crackled in the great stone hearth, casting dancing shadows across the worn timber walls of Thornwood Ranch. Outside, December snow fell thick and silent over Montana, blanketing the valley in white. Inside, an old man sat in his rocking chair, gnarled hands resting on knees that had carried him through 76 winters. Nathan Blake had seen much in his lifetime. He had built empires from dust, lost everything to flames, and found redemption in the arms of a woman who had every reason to hate him. Now at the end of his days, he held his greatest treasure close, his grandson. The boy, Everett, sat cross-legged on the braided rug at Nathan's feet, 10 years old with eyes full of questions and a heart hungry for stories. The kind of boy Nathan had once been before the world taught him its harder lessons. "Grandpa," Everett said, voice small in the firelit room, "how did you and Grandma meet?" Nathan smiled, the expression creasing his weathered face into a map of years lived fully. From the kitchen came the sounds of preparation. His daughter Grace, now 40 and gray, at the temples humming as she worked. And Emily, his Emily, 59 years old, still beautiful, still the woman who had saved him when he thought salvation was impossible. "That's a long story, boy." Nathan's voice was rough as creek stones, worn smooth by time. "A story about fear and choice, and what it means to be a man." He paused, letting the fire's warmth settle between them. "You want to hear it?" Everett nodded, eager. Nathan leaned forward and the rocking chair creaked with the weight of memory. "All right then, but you gotta promise me something first." The boy straightened, sensing the gravity in his grandfather's tone. "Promise me you'll remember this. A man ain't measured by how he starts. He's measured by what he does when everything's lost." Everett's young face grew solemn. He nodded. "This story starts 41 years ago, winter of 1884, the day I met your grandmother." Nathan closed his eyes and the years fell away like autumn leaves. The room behind Emily's eyes was cold. Not the clean cold of winter wind, but the damp, creeping cold of a place where hope goes to die. A small room behind the church in Broken Ridge, Montana territory. One window weak with afternoon light that seemed afraid to enter. The smell of old wood and dust hung in the air, mixing with something sharper. Whiskey, her father's breath. William Harrison stood behind his daughter, one hand gripping her shoulder hard enough to leave marks she wouldn't see until tomorrow. His fingers trembled. Not from age, William was only 52. The trembling came from something else, something that lived in bottles and demanded payment in shame. "Sign it," his voice scraped out, rough and desperate. Emily stared at the marriage contract spread before her on the wooden table, black ink on white paper. Simple words that would change everything. The pen felt heavy in her hand, foreign, like it belonged to someone else, someone braver, someone who had choices. Her hand shook. The pen slipped from her fingers. Ink spread across her signature like blood on snow. "Sign it," her father said again, and this time his grip tightened until pain shot through her shoulder. Outside, church bells began to ring. The sound rolled across the valley, calling the faithful to witness. Somewhere beyond that door, a stranger named Nathan Blake was waiting, waiting to claim his bride, his purchased bride. Emily picked up the pen again. Her name emerged on the paper in letters that looked like they belonged to a ghost. Emily Elizabeth Harrison, 19 years old. In 30 seconds, she would belong to a man she had never met, never seen, never spoken to. The bells rang louder. Her father pulled the contract away before the ink could dry. His hand shook worse than hers. "It's done." Relief flooded his voice, and something else. Something that might have been regret if William Harrison still had room for such things. "Get dressed. Church is waiting." Emily stared at her signature. The letters seemed to move, to reshape themselves into an accusation. This was surrender. This was the moment she stopped being a person and became property. "Please," the word came out broken. "There has to be another way." "There ain't. You haven't even told me his name." William shoved her mother's old wedding dress into her arms. The fabric was thin, yellowed with age, useless against Montana November. But Emily's father had sold everything else. The piano her mother had loved, the house where Emily had been born, the land that 3 generations of Harrisons had worked. All of it gone to pay debts he had drunk away. Blake, Nathan Blake, biggest ranch in Montana territory. You'll want for nothing. Accept my freedom. The slap came fast, not hard enough to bruise her face, but hard enough to silence her voice. William grabbed her shoulders with both hands, now pulling her close. His breath was sour with yesterday's whiskey and this morning's desperation. You think I wanted this? His voice cracked. You think I woke up one day and decided to sell my only child? Emily said nothing. Her cheeks stung. Her throat was too tight for words. The bank took everything, Emily. Everything. Your mother's piano, the house, the land. His eyes were red wet. Stone gave me a choice. Debtor's prison or this. You tell me which one you would have picked. You could have asked me. Would you have said yes? She didn't answer. They both knew. She wouldn't have. She would have found another way anyway, even if it meant leaving Montana forever and never looking back. But William Harrison had not asked. He had made the choice for her the way he had made every choice since her mother died 8 years ago. 3 sharp knocks rattled the door. 5 minutes, Mr. Harrison. Reverend Ashford's voice slid through the wood like oil. The groom is waiting. William released her. He stepped back, and for a moment Emily saw something in his face that might have been shame. But only for a moment. Then it was gone, replaced by the hollow look of a man who had already given up everything, including himself. Fix your hair. Put on the dress. Now. Emily turned to the cracked mirror on the wall. The face staring back was pale hollow. A stranger's face. She barely recognized herself. 20 minutes later, she stood alone at the back of the church. Her father had refused to walk her down the aisle. Can't bear it, he had said, voice thick. Can't watch what I done. Coward, Emily thought. Then a second thought, colder and more honest. Then I'm the coward. I'm the one walking. But her feet moved anyway. The pews were packed. Every soul in Broken Ridge had come to watch Emily Harrison become Emily Blake. Some pitied her. She could see it in their eyes. Most judged. All of them whispered, poor thing. Heard her daddy sold her for $500. That's more than she's worth. Emily kept walking. Head up, shoulders back. If this was to be her funeral, that she would at least walk to it with dignity. Mrs. Catherine Stone sat in the front pew, silk dress rustling with each breath. Satisfaction gleamed in her eyes. Her husband, Garrett Stone, stood beside her. He watched Emily with a calculating gaze that made her skin crawl. A look she couldn't name but felt in her bones. A predator's look. She would understand that look later. Too late. The altar loomed ahead, and standing before it waiting was a man, Nathan Blake. He was tall, broader across the shoulders than any man Emily had seen. A scar ran along his jaw, white against weathered skin that spoke of years under the sun. His hat was in his hands. His knuckles were scarred, marked by work and violence in equal measure. He looked older than she had expected. 36, perhaps? Old enough to be her father, almost. Emily stopped 3 feet from the altar. She looked at him. He looked back. She braced herself. Braced for triumph in his eyes, for possession, for the cold gaze of a man who had bought himself a wife and was pleased with his purchase. She braced for cruelty, for indifference, for anything except what she saw. Sorrow. Miss Harrison. His voice was low, rough as gravel under wagon wheels, but not unkind. I'm Nathan Blake. Emily's throat was so tight she could barely speak. I know who you are. Silence stretched between them. The church held its breath. 300 people leaning forward in their pews waiting. Then Nathan Blake said something that changed everything. Do you want to be here? The question hit Emily like cold water thrown in her face. Behind her, the congregation stirred. Whispers rose like wind through dry grass, rustling and urgent. Reverend Ashford stepped forward, Bible clutched to his chest like a shield. Mr. Blake, perhaps we should proceed with, I'm asking the lady. Nathan's eyes never left Emily's face. They were dark eyes the color of creek water in shadow, and they were waiting. Actually waiting, as if her answer mattered. Miss Harrison. His voice dropped lower. Answer me true. Do you want to be here? Emily's mind reeled. No one had asked her that. Not her father, who had sold her to save himself. Not Reverend Ashford, who had written the contract in exchange for Stone's money. Not a single soul in this godforsaken town. Does it matter? The words escaped before she could stop them, bitter and raw. It matters to me. The contract is signed. Nathan's expression didn't change. Contracts can be broken. From the front pew, Garrett Stone rose to his feet. The smile on his face was thin, dangerous, a knife's edge wrapped in silk. Mr. Blake, Stone's voice was smooth as whiskey and twice as poisonous. I don't think this is appropriate. The arrangement was clear. The debts have been. Sit down, Stone. Nathan didn't raise his voice. Didn't need to. The words carried weight enough on their own. Command, authority, the voice of a man who expected to be obeyed. Stone's smile flickered. His wife, Catherine, tugged at his sleeve with jeweled fingers. After a long moment, Stone sat. The church was silent now. Even the whispers had died. Every eye fixed on the scene unfolding at the altar. Nathan turned back to Emily. When he spoke again, his voice was gentler. I'll ask one more time. Say no, and I walk out that door right now. I'll pay your father's debts anyway. You go free. No strings attached. The church erupted, not in sound but in motion. People shifted in their seats. Heads turned, mouths open in shock. This wasn't how these things worked. This wasn't how anything worked. Emily stared at the man before her, this stranger who was offering her something no one else had. A choice, an actual choice. Not a cage with prettier bars. Not a different kind of prison. Freedom. Why? The words scraped out of her throat. Why would you do that? Nathan's jaw tightened. For a moment, something flickered across his face, something old and heavy. Because I know what it looks like when someone's trapped. His voice was so low only she could hear it now. And I won't be the one holding the cage. Emily's eyes burned. The smart thing, the safe thing would be to say no. To take his offer and run. Run so far from Broken Ridge that no one would ever find her. Let her father drink himself to death if that's what he chose. Let this town and its judgment sink into the earth. But where would she go? With no money, no family, no prospects. Her father would be dead within a year from the bottle. The town would never let her forget. And this man, this stranger with sad eyes and scarred hands, would walk away. And she would spend the rest of her life wondering what might have been if she had just been brave enough to choose. Yes. The word escaped before Emily could call it back. Nathan's brow furrowed. Yes, what? Emily lifted her chin, met his eyes, held them. Yes, I want to be here. Her voice grew stronger. I choose this. Something shifted in Nathan's expression. Relief, perhaps, or maybe hope. He had not expected her to say yes. She could see it written plain on his face. All right, then. He offered his hand, rough palm up, waiting. Shall we? Emily took his hand. The palm was warm, calloused from years of work. Steady, it felt nothing like her father's trembling grip. Nothing like the desperate clutch of a drowning man. It felt like solid ground. She had no idea she was holding the hand of the only man who would ever truly fight for her. Reverend Ashford rushed through the vows like a man racing against a coming storm. Emily barely heard the words. She was too aware of Nathan beside her, the heat of him, the stillness, the way he stood as if roots had grown from his boots into the earth. Do you, Emily Elizabeth Harrison, take this man to be your lawfully wedded husband? Emily looked at Nathan. He looked back, patient and waiting. I do. And do you, Nathan Thornton Blake, take this woman to be your lawfully wedded wife? Nathan's answer came without hesitation, but it was not what anyone expected. I will. Not I do, I will. The difference rippled through the church like wind over water. Women glanced at each other, eyebrows raised. Men shifted in their seats. It was a small thing, 2 words instead of 2 others. But in that small difference lay a world. I do implied present completion. I will implied future commitment. A promise made, not a duty accepted. Reverend Ashford blinked momentarily, thrown. Then he recovered, snapping his Bible shut like a trap. By the power vested in me by the territory of Montana, I now pronounce you man and wife. He cleared his throat. You may kiss the bride. Nathan leaned close. Emily's breath caught in her chest. Her heart hammered against her ribs. His lips brushed her cheek. Not her mouth, her cheek, light as a butterfly landing. Brief as morning mist. A promise, not a claim. He leaned closer still until his mouth was beside her ear. His breath was warm against her skin. Whenever you're ready, he whispered so low that only she could hear. Not before. Then he stepped back and offered his arm. They walked down the aisle together, man and wife, stranger and stranger, but something had shifted. Some invisible weight had changed hands. Outside, the cold hit like a fist. November in Montana Territory. The sky was iron gray, heavy with the promise of snow. The wind carried the smell of winter coming sharp and clean. Nathan helped Emily into the wagon. His hand found her elbow, steadying her as she climbed. She flinched at the touch, unable to help herself. He stepped back immediately. No hesitation, no offense taken. "I'm sorry," Emily said quickly. The words tumbled out. "I didn't mean it, no need." Nathan climbed up beside her, gathering the reins in his scarred hands. "You don't know me. Reckon it makes sense to be cautious." The horses started forward. Behind them, the church doors burst open. The congregation spilled out onto the steps, watching them leave. At the center of the crowd, hands in his pocket, stood Garrett Stone, that calculating smile still on his face. Watching. Always watching. "They're staring," Emily said quietly. "Let them." Nathan kept his eyes on the road ahead. The horses' hooves struck the frozen ground with steady rhythm. "They'll talk." "They already are." His voice was flat, matter of fact. "Ain't nothing we do going to change that." They drove through town in silence, past the general store with its false front and painted sign, past Stone's Bank, red brick and 3 stories tall, the only fine building in Broken Ridge, past the saloon where men paused their whiskey to watch the wagon pass, their eyes following Emily with expressions she chose not to read. Then they were beyond the town limits. The road stretched ahead, empty and white with frost. Mountains rose in the distance, purple against the gray sky. "How far?" Emily asked, breaking the silence. "Thornwood Ranch, about an hour." An hour. 60 minutes between her old life and whatever came next. "I don't know anything about you," she said. Nathan glanced at her, then back at the road. "What do you want to know? Why you agreed to this arrangement?" "The truth." He was quiet for a long moment. The only sounds were the wagon's creak, the rhythmic clop of hooves on hard earth, the wind cutting through the valley like a blade. "I'm tired," he said finally. "Tired of coming home to empty rooms, eating every meal alone, talking to horses more than people." He looked at her, then really looked at her. "I'm 36 years old, Miss Harrison. Got a good ranch, good land, cattle that bring fair prices at market." His voice roughened, "But I got no one to share it with." "So you bought a wife." The words came out harsher than Emily intended, but she didn't take them back. "I thought I was helping a woman who wanted a fresh start." Nathan's jaw tightened. "Stone told me the arrangement was mutual, that you'd agreed to it, that you wanted to leave Broken Ridge and start over somewhere better." Emily laughed. The sound came out bitter, broken. "Stone told you that?" "He did." "And you believed him?" "Had no reason not to." Nathan's knuckles were white on the reins. "Not until I saw your face at that altar. Then I knew he'd lied about every damn thing." "Then why go through with it?" Nathan was silent for 3 breaths. 4. When he finally spoke, his voice was low and rough. "Because if I'd walked out, you'd have been ruined, whole town watching. They'd have said you weren't good enough, that even a man who paid for you didn't want you." He paused. "I wasn't going to do that to you." Emily's chest ached. He wasn't wrong. She knew how this town worked, knew how quickly pity could turn to judgment, how fast mercy could become condemnation. "So you married me to save my reputation." "I married you because I gave my word to your father, because Stone had already taken his money, and because I figured," he stopped searching for words, "figured maybe we could sort out the rest of it as we go." The wind picked up. Snow began to fall, light at first, then heavier. Emily shivered. Her mother's old dress was thin, useless against Montana cold. Nathan noticed. Without a word, he shrugged off his coat and held it out to her. "Here, take it. You'll freeze. I've had worse." Emily took the coat. It was heavy, lined with sheepskin, still warm from his body. It smelled like leather and wood smoke and something else. Something that was just him. Clean and honest and real. "Thank you," she whispered. "You're welcome, Mrs. Blake." Mrs. Blake. The name settled over her like the coat, heavy and foreign, and somehow right. Emily stared at the horizon where mountains met sky and tried to remember how to breathe. Thornwood Ranch rose from the valley like something built by giants. 2 stories of hand-hewn timber and riverstone. A wraparound porch that seemed to embrace the whole structure. Smoke curled from the massive stone chimney, a promise of warmth. Behind the house stood a barn twice the size of her father's entire property, solid and square, and built to last. "This is yours," Emily breathed. "Ours." That word again, heavy with implications she wasn't ready to examine. The wagon rolled to a stop. Before Nathan could help her down, a man emerged from the barn. He was older, perhaps 60, with dark skin weathered by decades of sun. He walked with a slight limp favoring his left leg. "Boss," the man tipped his hat to Emily. His smile was crooked genuine. "Ma'am." "This is Samuel Gray," Nathan said. "Keeps this place running while I pretend to know what I'm doing." Samuel's smile widened, revealing a gap where a tooth used to be. "Nice to meet you, Mrs. Blake." "Just Emily," she said automatically. "Can't do that, ma'am. Wouldn't be proper." Samuel's eyes were kind. "I'll see to the horses. You get the lady inside before she freezes solid." Nathan led Emily up the porch steps. The boards were solid under her feet, well-made and carefully maintained. He pushed open the heavy oak door. Warmth rushed out to meet them. The great room was larger than Emily's entire childhood home. A stone fireplace dominated one wall 8 feet wide, with elk antlers mounted above it. The fire crackling there filled the space with dancing light. Handmade furniture stood arranged with care. A table that could seat 8, chairs with carved details. A rocking chair pulled close to the hearth. A braided rug in shades of blue and cream covered the floor. The smell of wood smoke and coffee hung in the air, mixing with the scent of leather and home. "Kitchen's through there," Nathan gestured to an archway. "Pantry's full. Anything you need, Samuel heads to town Wednesdays." Emily nodded, still mute, trying to take it all in. "I'll show you upstairs." The staircase was wide, the wood worn smooth by years of boots. Oil lamps flickered in the hallway above, casting warm light on walls made from pine planks. Nathan stopped at the second door on the right. He pushed it open and stepped aside. "This is your room." Emily entered slowly. A 4-poster bed dominated the space, hand-carved from what looked like pine. A quilt in shades of blue and cream covered it, matching the rug downstairs. A washstand stood by the window, complete with fresh water and clean towels. The window itself faced east, offering a view of the valley stretching toward distant mountains. And on the inside of the door, mounted at chest height, was a lock. Heavy iron, a barrel bolt 8 inches long, solid and unmovable. Nathan pointed to it. "Use it every night if you want. I ain't going to knock unless you ask me to." Emily stared at the lock, then at him. Her mind struggled to process what he was offering. "You're giving me a lock against you?" "Against anyone." His face was stone unreadable. "You're safe here, Mrs. Blake. I need you to understand that." "I don't understand." Her voice shook despite her efforts to control it. "You paid for me. The contract is signed. By law, I'm your property now." "No," the word came out sharp as a rifle crack, final as a judge's gavel. "I don't own you. I don't own anyone." Nathan stepped closer, not threatening, but intent. "You're my wife, not my property. There's a difference, Wasoinkas." He held her gaze, and in his eyes she saw something she hadn't expected. Certainty, conviction, truth. "Listen to me, Emily." He used her given name for the first time. "Whatever happens between us, if anything ever happens, it'll be because you want it, not because of contracts, not because of debts, not because some piece of paper says you have to." His voice dropped lower. "Because you choose it. You understand me." Emily's throat closed. No man had ever spoken to her like this, with this much respect, this much regard. As if her will, her choice, her voice actually mattered. "Why?" The word barely made it past her lips. "Why are you being so kind?" Nathan was quiet for a long moment. Something moved across his face. Old pain, old loss. "Because someone should have been kind to you a long time ago." He stepped back toward the door. "Supper's at 6 if you're hungry. If you ain't, I'll leave a plate outside your door." He paused with his hand on the frame. "Whatever you decide, Emily, I'll respect it." Then he pulled the door closed behind him, leaving her alone in a room that was suddenly too quiet. Emily stood in the center of that silence. She crossed to the door, touched the lock with trembling fingers, turned it. The click echoed loud in the stillness. Then she sat on the edge of the bed and let herself break. She cried for her mother, dead 8 years now, taken by fever because they couldn't afford a doctor. She cried for her father who had sold his only child to save himself from a prison of his own making. She cried for the girl she used to be, the one who had believed in love and choices and futures bright with possibility. She cried until there was nothing left inside her but emptiness. Downstairs, Nathan sat at the kitchen table. 2 plates set, 2 cups filled with coffee, food getting cold, venison stew that Samuel had made that morning, fresh biscuits, simple fare but good. He waited. 7 o'clock came. She didn't appear. 8 o'clock, still alone. By 9, the food was long cold. Nathan wrapped biscuits and bacon in a clean cloth. He carried them upstairs and set them outside her door. He stood there for a long moment, listening to the silence from within. Then he turned and walked away. He had made a promise at that altar. I will. Future commitment. And part of that commitment meant giving her space, giving her time, giving her the choice he had promised. In the kitchen, Samuel was washing dishes. He glanced up when Nathan entered. She all right? Reckon she will be, eventually. Samuel dried his hands on a towel. Town's going to talk, boss. Town can choke on it. The older man studied Nathan with eyes that had seen too much, survived too much. He had known Nathan for 15 years, had watched him build this ranch from nothing, had stood beside him through fire and loss in the long years of grief that followed. You sure about this? Samuel asked quietly. Taking in a woman who don't want to be here. She had a choice, Nathan's voice was firm. I gave her one, and she chose to stay. She chose to treat me. He stared at the empty chair across the table. That's more than I expected, more than I deserved, and more than most men would have given her. Samuel nodded slowly. You ain't most men. No, I ain't. That's why I've worked for you 15 years. Samuel hung up the towel. Get some sleep, boss. Tomorrow's coming, whether you're ready or not. After Samuel left, Nathan sat alone in the kitchen for a long time. Then he went to the window and looked out at the darkness. Snow was falling heavier now, blanketing the ranch in white, and there on the ridge above Thornwood sat a single rider, motionless against the gray sky, watching the house below. Even at this distance, Nathan recognized him. The horse, the silhouette, the way the man sat in his saddle like he owned the world. Garrett Stone. The man tipped his hat toward the house, slow and deliberate, a gesture that could have been greeting or threat or both. Then he turned his horse and disappeared into the falling snow. Nathan's hand moved to the Winchester rifle mounted above the door. He didn't take it down, not yet, but he checked that it was loaded, checked that the action was smooth, checked that everything was ready. He knew trouble when he saw it, and trouble had just marked his home. Morning came gray and bitter. Emily woke to silence so complete it seemed to have weight. For a moment she didn't know where she was. Then memory returned in a rush, the church, the altar, Nathan Blake's sad eyes and scarred hands, the choice he had given her, the lock she had turned. She sat up slowly, her body ached, not from any injury but from the exhaustion that comes from crying yourself empty, from spending a night in a strange bed in a strange house, listening to every creak and footfall, wondering if the lock would hold, if the promise would last. She rose and crossed to the door, turned the lock. The bolt slid back with a solid click. She opened the door a crack. A plate sat on the threshold. Biscuits and bacon wrapped carefully in clean cloth. Cold now, but still good. Still thoughtful. He had kept his word. Emily brought the plate inside. She sat on the edge of the bed and ate slowly, staring out the window at the white world beyond. The valley stretched before her, vast and empty and beautiful in its desolation. Snow covered everything. Mountains rose in the distance like the bones of the earth breaking through skin. This was her home now, for better or worse. Voices drifted up through the floorboards. She crept to the top of the stairs and listened. Town's already running their mouths. Samuel's voice matter of fact. They're saying you bought yourself a pretty young thing, saying she didn't have no choice in the matter. Let them talk. They're saying she's half your age, that it ain't right. I know what they're saying. Nathan's voice carried an edge now. Don't change the truth. What is the truth, boss? Silence. Then Nathan spoke again, quieter this time. Truth is, I gave her a choice. More of a choice than anyone else in that town gave her. I stood at that altar and asked if she wanted to be there. In front of everyone, asked if she wanted to marry me, told her she could walk away. And she stayed. She stayed, her choice, her decision. A pause. That makes all the difference. Samuel's voice softened. You're a good man, Nathan Blake. I'm a man trying not to make the same mistakes twice. Emily pulled back from the stairs. Her throat was tight. Her eyes burned again, but she had no tears left to cry. She returned to her room and closed the door. Left it unlocked this time. Not open, just unlocked. It was a small thing, a gesture so minor it might go unnoticed. But for Emily Harrison Blake, it was the first choice she had made in months that felt truly her own. 3 days passed. Emily moved through the house like a ghost. She ate when Nathan wasn't in the kitchen. She stayed in her room when she heard his boots on the stairs. They crossed paths twice. Once in the hallway, once on the porch. Both times Nathan nodded to her, stepped aside, gave her space. He never pushed, never asked questions, never made her feel trapped, which somehow made everything harder. On the fourth morning, Emily forced herself downstairs all early. Nathan sat at the kitchen table with a ledger open before him. Coffee steamed in a tin cup. He looked up when she entered. Morning. His voice was neutral. Safe. Morning, Emily replied. She poured herself coffee and sat across from him. The silence stretched between them like a rope pulled taut. Not comfortable. Not yet. But not unbearable either. Emily took a breath. I want to know about her. Nathan's pen stopped moving. About who? The woman in the photograph. On your nightstand. Emily met his eyes. Your door was open yesterday when I walked past. I saw it. His face went still. Guarded. For a long moment she thought he wouldn't answer. Then he set down his pen. Her name was Rachel. My wife. Emily's heart stumbled. You were married before. 5 years ago. The words dropped between them like stones into still water. What happened? Nathan's jaw tightened. His hands, scarred and strong, closed into fists on the table. Fire. Middle of the night. His voice was flat, emptied of emotion. Took the house. Took Rachel. Took our daughter. Emily couldn't breathe. You had a child. Rose, she was 2 years old. The room seemed to tilt. Emily gripped the table's edge to steady herself. Nathan, I'm so sorry. Me too. He picked up his pen again, stared at the ledger without seeing it. I wasn't there. I was out chasing cattle thieves up near the Canadian border. 3 days away. When I got back, he stopped, swallowed hard. There was nothing left but ashes and smoke. His voice cracked on the last word. Emily wanted to reach across the table, to touch his hand, to offer some comfort, but she didn't know how, didn't know if she had the right. That's why this house is too quiet, Nathan said. That's why I agreed when Stone came to me with his arrangement. Not because I wanted a wife, because I couldn't stand the silence anymore. He looked at her then, really looked at her. And now I got a woman in my house who flinches when I walk past, who locks her door every night, who looks at me like she's waiting for me to turn into a monster. I don't think you're a monster, but you're afraid of me. Emily couldn't deny it. I'm afraid of everything. Nathan nodded slowly. He leaned forward and Emily fought the urge to lean back. I don't know if what's broken between us can be fixed, he said quietly. I don't know if trust can be built from something that started like this, but I'm willing to try if you are. He reached across the table, not to grab her hand, not to force contact, just offering, palm up, waiting. Emily stared at that scarred, calloused hand, the hand that had held reins and rifle, that had built this house board by board, that had buried a wife and daughter and somehow kept going, the hand that had given her a choice when no one else would. Slowly she placed her hand in his. His fingers closed around hers, warm and careful and real. I'll try, she whispered. That's all I can promise. That's enough. His voice was rough with emotion. That's more than enough. They sat there in the morning light, two strangers holding hands across the kitchen table, and for the first time since the church, Emily felt something other than fear. She felt hope. After breakfast that morning, Nathan caught Emily in the kitchen. She was kneading biscuit dough, her hands working the flour with a rhythm that spoke of years helping her mother. Years before everything fell apart. You know how to ride? Emily looked up startled. Flour dusted her cheeks. What? A horse, you know how to ride one? My father never taught me. Nathan leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed. Not threatening, just present. Then I'll teach you after we finish here. Emily's hands stilled in the dough. Why? Because this is a ranch, because winter's coming hard and fast and you need to know your way around. He paused and something flickered across his face. And because if something happens and you need to get out, I want you to be able to. Get out from what Emily wanted to ask, but the words stuck in her throat. An hour later, she stood in the barn staring at the biggest horse she'd ever seen. The mare was enormous, towering over her muscle and power, barely contained in brown hide. Her name's Clementine, Nathan said, running his hand along the horse's neck with easy familiarity. American quarter horse. 15 hands high, about 1,100 pounds. Gentlest horse I got. She won't throw you. She's enormous. She's patient. Nathan's voice carried the hint of a smile. Like you're going to have to be. He held out his hand. Emily hesitated, then stepped forward and took it. His grip was firm, guiding her hand to the horse's muzzle. Let her smell you. Let her know you ain't a threat. Clementine's breath was warm against Emily's palm. The mare nickered softly, a sound that vibrated through Emily's bones. She likes you, Nathan said. How can you tell? She ain't bit you yet. Despite everything, Emily almost laughed. The sound surprised her. Surprised them both. Nathan moved to the saddle hanging on the wall. Watch close. This is how you saddle a horse. He showed her each step. The blanket first placed high on the withers, then slid back so the hair lay flat. The saddle lifted carefully, settled with precision. The cinch tightened gradually, checking for Clementine's reaction. Horses will hold their breath to keep the saddle loose, Nathan explained. Then when you mount, the saddle slips and you end up in the dirt. So you tighten it slow. Wait, tighten again. Emily watched, memorizing each movement. Now, Nathan said, put your left foot in the stirrup, always left. Wipe tradition. Most people are right-handed. Keep your right hand free for the reins. He positioned himself beside her. Grab the horn with your right hand. Pull yourself up. Swing your right leg over. Emily placed her foot in the stirrup. The leather was cold and stiff. She grabbed the horn and pulled. Her arms shook with the effort. The ground seemed impossibly far below. That's it. Nathan's voice was steady, encouraging. Swing your leg. There you go. His hands found her waist, supporting but not grabbing. Just there. Just helping. And suddenly she was up, sitting in the saddle, looking down at the world from a height she had never known. Oh! The word escaped her lips, carried on a breath of wonder. How's it feel? Like I might fall. You won't. I got you. Nathan's hand rested on her knee, not possessive, just there. Now take the reins. Hold them loose. Don't yank. Clementine knows what to do. You just got to tell her where. Emily's hands trembled as she gathered the leather straps. Watch her ears, Nathan said. Ears forward means she's curious, interested. Ears back means she's angry or scared. Watch her eyes. Horses tell you everything with their eyes. Emily studied the mare's ears. They were pricked forward, alert but calm. Good. Now click your tongue. Give her a little nudge with your heels. Emily clicked. She nudged. Clementine started forward. The world tilted. Emily's stomach dropped. Her hands tightened on the reins, yanking them back without meaning to. Clementine stopped, confused. Easy. Nathan's voice cut through her panic. Breathe, you're doing fine. Loose hands, light touch. Let her move. They circled the corral once, twice, 3 times. By the 6th circle, Emily's grip had loosened. Her breathing had steadied. Her body was beginning to move with the horse instead of against it. And for the first time in months, Emily felt something she hadn't felt since her mother died. She felt free. Can I try alone? The words came out before she could stop them. Nathan studied her face, searching for something. Then he let go of the bridle and stepped back. She's all yours. Emily clicked her tongue. Clementine moved forward, and this time Emily moved with her. The rhythm of the horse's gait, the sway of muscle beneath her, the cold air on her face and the vast Montana sky overhead. This was freedom. This was choice. This was power. When they finally stopped, Samuel was standing by the barn. He grinned, showing the gap where his tooth used to be. Well, look at that. Mrs. Blake sits a horse like she was born to it. She's a natural, Nathan said. Something in his voice made Emily's chest warm. I'm a beginner, she protested, but she was smiling. Actually smiling. Every natural starts as a beginner. Samuel took Clementine's reins. You keep at it, ma'am. By spring, you'll be riding circles around the boss here. That ain't hard, Nathan muttered. Samuel laughed, and the sound filled the morning air like music. That night, Emily left her bedroom door unlocked. Not open, just unlocked. And when Nathan passed by in the hallway, he paused. She heard him stop, heard the silence as he registered the change. Then he kept walking, respecting her boundary even as she moved it. Progress came in inches. By the end of the first week, Emily could saddle Clementine herself. By the end of the second, she could trot without bouncing like a sack of flour, though her thighs ached something fierce. By the end of the third, she was cantering, learning to move with the horse at speed. Nathan was patient, never raised his voice, never made her feel foolish when she made mistakes, and she made plenty. Once she fell landing hard in the snow. Nathan helped her up without fuss. Happens to everyone, part of learning. One afternoon during the third week, they rode together out past the creek. The sun was bright, the air cold enough to bite. Snow blanketed the hills in white. You're too tense, Nathan said as they moved side by side. The horse feels it. Relax your shoulders. I'm trying. Try harder. Emily shot him a look. That's not helpful. The corner of his mouth twitched. Almost a smile. It ain't meant to be helpful. It's meant to be true. She forced her shoulders down, loosened her grip on the reins. Better, Nathan acknowledged. Getting there. They rode in silence for a while. Emily found herself studying him when she thought he wasn't looking. The way he sat in the saddle like he'd been born there. The easy confidence in every movement. The scars on his hands, and the deeper scars she couldn't see. Nathan, she said finally. Yeah. Why don't you ever talk about Rachel? His jaw tightened. For 3 breaths, he didn't answer. Then 4. What do you want to know? Anything, everything. Emily kept her eyes forward, giving him space. I live in your house. I wear your name, but I don't know who you were before me. Before you, the words hung in the cold air between them. Before you, Nathan said slowly, I was a man with a wife and a daughter and a future. After them was just a man with land and silence and too much time to think. Tell me about her, about them. Nathan was quiet for so long Emily thought he wouldn't answer. Then he spoke and his voice was different, softer, weighted with memory. Rachel was the bravest woman I ever knew. Came out here from Virginia with nothing but a carpet bag and a stubborn streak. Met her in town. She was arguing with the general store owner about the price of flour. Who won, Scrim? She did. She always did. A ghost of a smile crossed his face. We married 3 months later. Built this house together. It took 2 years, but we did every bit of it ourselves. He paused and Emily waited, letting him find the words at his own pace. When Rose came, I thought I had everything a man could want. A home, a wife who loved me, a daughter who, his voice cracked. She'd just learned to walk, used to toddle after me around the barn, called me Papa, couldn't say Daddy yet. Tears burned in Emily's eyes. Nathan, I'm so sorry. I shouldn't have asked. No, and he turned to look at her. You should. You got a right to know who you're living with, what you're walking into. His hands tightened on the reins. I ain't over them. Don't know if I ever will be. But I'm trying to make something new. Something that honors what they were. Something that, he stopped searching for words. Something that matters. And me, Emily asked quietly. Where do I fit? I don't know yet. Honest, direct. But I'm hoping we can figure that out together. Emily nodded, not trusting herself to speak. They rode back to the ranch in silence, but it was a different kind of silence now. Not empty. Full. Week 4 began with gunfire. Emily stood behind the barn, hands trembling as Nathan loaded the Winchester rifle. The weapon was longer than her arm, heavier than anything she'd ever held except a baby. Winchester model 1873, Nathan said, his voice taking on the tone of a teacher. 4440 caliber, lever action, holds 15 rounds in the tube magazine, weighs about 9.5 pounds. He handed it to her. The weight nearly pulled her arms down. It'll kick like a first time might bruise your shoulder. You'll get used to it. Nathan positioned her carefully, feet shoulder width apart, left foot forward. Leans slightly into the shot to absorb the recoil. Left hand supporting the forend, right hand on the grip. Sight picture is everything. See that front blade? Focus on that. The rear sight should be a little blurry, the target more blurry still. Line them up, front blade in the center of the rear notch. Emily tried to follow his instructions. Her arms shook with the effort of holding the rifle steady. Breathe normal, then exhale slow. Squeeze the trigger between heartbeats. Between breaths, don't jerk it. Surprise yourself when it fires. She lined up the shot, breathed, exhaled, squeezed. The rifle exploded. The stock slammed into her shoulder hard enough to drive her back 2 steps. Her ears rang. The target, a burlap sack stuffed with hay 50 yards away, remained untouched. Good-ish, Nathan said, and she turned to stare at him. I missed. But you didn't flinch. That's half the battle. They practiced for 2 hours, 30 rounds. By the end, Emily was hitting the target 3 times out of 10. Her shoulder was purple. Her arms trembled with fatigue. But her eyes were bright. Nathan showed her the Colt Peacemaker next. Smaller, lighter, meant for close-range work. If you're using this, he said, his voice grave, it means someone's too close. Aim for center mass. Don't try for headshots. Shoot until they stop moving. The words should have frightened her. Instead, they made her feel capable, not helpless, not a victim, a woman who could defend herself. Why are you teaching me all this? Emily asked as they walked back to the house. Nathan stopped, looked at her with those dark, serious eyes. Because hope is a dangerous thing, and I'm hoping you stay. But if you ever need to leave, if you ever need to run, I want you to be able to survive. That night, Emily's door stayed unlocked again. And when she heard Nathan's boots in the hall, she heard him pause longer than before. Sunday came with cold wind and gray skies. 8 weeks had passed since the wedding. Emily made a decision. I'm going to church, she announced at breakfast. Nathan looked up from his coffee. You don't have to do that. Yes, I do. She met his eyes. I can't hide forever. And if I don't face them now, I never will. Then I'm coming with you. No, Emily touched his arm. The gesture came easier now. I need to do this alone. Nathan studied her face for a long moment. Then he nodded. All right, but if anyone gives you trouble, I can handle it. He almost smiled. That's what worries me. The church was packed, every pew filled, every eye turned when Emily walked through the door alone. The whispers started immediately. That's her, the bought bride. Where's her husband? Couldn't even bother to show up. Emily kept walking, head high, shoulders back. She found a seat in the middle pew, not hiding in the back, not challenging them in the front. Just there, Reverend Ashford's sermon was about the virtues of obedience. He glanced at Emily twice. She didn't flinch. After the service, the women gathered in the church parlor for tea and judgment in equal measure. Catherine Stone approached, first silk dress rustling with each step. Mrs. Blake, how lovely to see you. We were beginning to think you'd forgotten us. Mrs. Stone, Emily kept her voice pleasant. I've been settling in. Of course, it must be quite an adjustment. Living out there with, Catherine paused delicately, with a stranger. My husband isn't a stranger. Not anymore. How modern. Catherine's smile sharpened. Tell me, did he give you the tour of the house, show you where he buried his first wife? The words landed like a slap. Around them, conversation stopped. Women turned to watch. Emily's hands trembled at her sides, but her voice stayed steady. He showed me the graves, yes. Rachel and Rose Blake, murdered 5 years ago. She held Catherine's gaze. Murdered by men who thought they could get away with it because no one was watching. Catherine's smile flickered. I'm sure I don't know what you... Mrs. Blake, a younger woman, stepped forward. Julia Bennett, known throughout Broken Ridge for her sharp tongue. We're all just so curious. What's it like being bought? Laughter rippled through the room. Emily felt heat rising to her cheeks, felt the old shame trying to drag her down. But something had changed in the past 8 weeks. She had learned to ride, to shoot, to stand her ground. Nathan had given her that, not as a gift, but as a truth she had always possessed and simply needed to remember. You're right, Emily said, and the room went quiet. My father sold me to pay his debts. Everyone knows it. I was angry. I was scared. I thought my life was over. She looked around the room, meeting each judging gaze. But then I met Nathan Blake. And at that altar, in front of all of you, he asked me if I wanted to be there. He gave me a choice. If I'd said no, he would have let me go. Paid my father's debts anyway. How noble, Julia sneered. It is noble. Emily's voice grew stronger. More noble than anyone in this room has ever been to me. My husband is a good man, a better man than most of you deserve to know. She gathered her coat. And I won't stand here and listen to you mock him. Catherine's voice stopped her at the door. Mrs. Blake, you might think you found yourself a hero, but men like Nathan Blake, men with secrets, they always disappoint in the end. Emily turned back. And women like you, women with nothing but cruelty in their hearts, always die alone. She walked out into the cold. Her hands shook the entire ride home, but she was smiling. Nathan was waiting on the porch when she pulled the wagon into the yard. How'd it go? I told Catherine Stone she'd die alone. Nathan stared at her. Then he laughed. Actually laughed, full and surprised and genuine. Wish I could have seen her face. It was satisfying. Emily climbed down from the wagon. Then her smile faded. She also said you have secrets. That men with secrets will always disappoint. The laughter died in Nathan's eyes. She ain't wrong. What do you mean by, I got secrets, Emily. Things I ain't told you. Things about Rachel. About how she really died. He looked away. Things that might change how you see me. Emily's blood went cold. You said it was a fire. It was, but he stopped, shook his head. Not tonight. I'll tell you everything. I swear it, but not tonight. Emily wanted to push, wanted to demand answers, but she saw the pain in his face raw and real and couldn't bring herself to press harder. All right, she said quietly, when you're ready. Thank you. They stood in the cold snow falling soft around them. Then Nathan spoke again. Emily, what you did today, standing up to them, that took courage. I was terrified. That's what courage is. He reached out and touched her cheek just briefly, being terrified and doing it anyway. His hand was warm against her cold skin. She didn't flinch, didn't pull away. Come inside, she said. I'll make coffee. They walked in together, and for the first time it felt like maybe they were building something real. 3 days later, Emily rode to town alone. She needed thread for mending flour for baking. Simple errands, normal life. The general store was quiet when she entered. Mrs. Hawkins, the owner's wife, weighed Emily's purchases in silence. Her lips were pressed thin with disapproval. That'll be $2.40. Emily paid and gathered her packages. She was almost to the door when Mrs. Hawkins spoke again. Mrs. Blake. Emily turned. The older woman leaned over the counter, voice dropping to barely above a whisper. You seem like a nice girl. Naive, maybe, but nice. Thank you. That wasn't a compliment. Mrs. Hawkins glanced toward the door, checking they were alone. Be careful. With Stone, with your husband, with all of it. Emily's heart began to pound. What do you mean? I mean there's more going on in this town than you know. More history, more blood. The woman's eyes were serious, almost frightened. Just be careful. Before Emily could ask more, Mrs. Hawkins turned away and busied herself with restocking shelves. The conversation was over. Emily left with her heart racing. More history, more blood. What did that mean? She was loading her packages into the wagon when she heard voices. Familiar voices coming from the alley beside Stone's bank. She froze, packages forgotten. Told you to wait. Garrett Stone's voice, angry and controlled. I've waited long enough. A second voice, smooth and oily. Reverend Ashford. The mine survey came back. There's silver under that land, a lot of it. Emily's blood turned to ice. She pressed herself against the wall, hidden in the shadow between buildings. I know that. Stone's voice was sharp. Why do you think I arranged the marriage? The girl was supposed to be leverage. Make Blake soft. Make him careless. Then we move in. But he won't sell. You said so yourself. A long pause. When Stone spoke again, his voice was cold enough to freeze hell. There are other ways to get land, Reverend. What are you suggesting? I won't be party to? You're already parties to it. You married them. You took my money. You're in this as deep as I am. Silence, then Ashford's voice, smaller now. What do you want me to do? Keep watching, keep reporting, And when the time comes, be ready to do what needs doing. Footsteps approached the alley mouth. Emily shrank back farther, hardly daring to breathe. But then Stone spoke again, and his words stopped her heart. Blake's wife saw their faces before she died. That's why they couldn't let her live. Same mistake won't happen twice. The footsteps faded. Emily waited, counting heartbeats until she was sure they were gone. Then she ran to her wagon and drove for home faster than she'd ever driven in her life. Nathan was in the barn when she arrived. He dropped his pitchfork the moment he saw her face. What happened? Stone. Emily was shaking. And Ashford. I heard them talking. Talking about what? About us. About the ranch. She grabbed his arm. Nathan, there's silver under your land. That's why Stone arranged our marriage. I was supposed to be leverage, to make you weak, to make you slow down. Nathan's hands found her shoulders, steadying her. Start from the beginning. Emily told him everything. The overheard conversation, the silver, the plan, and finally the words that changed everything. He said Rachel saw their faces before she died. That's why they killed her. Nathan's face went white. His hands began to tremble. Silver, he repeated, like the word was poison. There's silver under Thornwood. And Stone wants it. Emily's voice cracked. He planned all of this. The marriage. Me. Everything. Nathan's eyes were distant, seeing something else. Something 5 years passed. She saw them, he whispered. Rachel saw who started the fire. That's why they killed her. That's why they killed Rose. Emily's own tears were falling now. Nathan, I'm so sorry. 5 years. His voice was hollow. 5 years I thought it was my fault. That I should have been there. That if I'd just come home sooner. He stopped. His fists clenched. And this whole time it was him. Stone murdered my family. Nathan. I'm going to kill him. The words came out flat, final. Emily grabbed his face, forcing him to look at her. No, that's what he wants. He wants you to do something stupid, something that gets you hanged. I don't care. I care. Emily's voice rose. I didn't come this far to watch you throw your life away. My life ended 5 years ago. Then why am I here? The question burst out of her raw and desperate. Why did you marry me? Why did you teach me to ride? Why did you give me that lock on my door and teach me to shoot and show me what it means to have a choice? Tears streamed down her face. If your life ended 5 years ago, then what is this? What are we? Nathan stared at her, the rage in his eyes flickered, dimmed. We do this right, Emily said, holding his gaze. We do this legal. We get evidence, we get witnesses, and we watch Garrett Stone hang for what he did. She took his face in both her hands. Promise me. A long moment passed. Nathan's jaw worked. His hands came up to cover hers. I promise. But if he touches you, if he comes anywhere near you, all promises are off. Fair enough. They left the barn together. The sun was setting, painting the snow in shades of gold and red, beautiful and cold and indifferent to human suffering. We need proof, Emily said. We need someone willing to testify. Your father. Emily stopped walking. What? William Harrison dealt with Stone directly. He might know something we can use. Emily's stomach turned. I haven't seen him since the wedding. I know, but if we're going to stop Stone, we need all the information we can get. Emily looked at Nathan for a long moment. Then she nodded. All right, we'll go tomorrow. That night, neither of them slept. They sat by the fire watching flames dance in the hearth, thinking about justice and vengeance, and the fine line between the two. The boarding house where William Harrison lived was a sorry place. One room, one window, one man drinking himself to death in slow motion. Except the bottle on the nightstand was empty, and William's hands when he opened the door were steadier than Emily had seen them in years. Emily, his eyes widened, then narrowed. What do you want? The truth about Stone, about the arrangement you made. Emily stepped forward and Nathan followed close behind. About why you really sold me. William sank onto the bed. For a long moment he said nothing. Then his shoulders slumped. I don't know what you're talking about. Yes, you do. Emily's voice was hard. Stone didn't just offer to pay your debts, did he? There was more to it. Silence. Tell me the truth, Father. For once in your life. William's face crumpled. When he spoke, his voice was barely audible. He came to me 6 months ago. I was drowning in debt. $750. The bank was going to foreclose, going to throw me in prison. He looked up at Emily and his eyes were wet. Stone said he knew a man, a wealthy rancher, a widower looking for a wife. And you sold me to him. He said if you married this man, he'd pay off everything, free and clear. William's voice cracked. I told myself it would be better for you, a rich husband, a big house, a future. Did you know about the silver arm? Emily's voice was cold. William froze, the silence stretched. Yes, he finally whispered. I knew. Emily felt the words like a physical blow. Nathan stepped forward, his voice deadly quiet. What else did Stone tell you? He said once Emily was married, he'd find a way to get the land, that it would be easier to deal with a widow than a stubborn rancher. The words hung in the air like poison. Emily's vision swam. You knew. You knew he was planning to kill Nathan. I didn't know for certain. Don't. Emily's voice broke. Don't you dare make excuses. You sold me to a man you thought would be murdered. You sent me into that house knowing I'd end up a widow, knowing Stone would take everything. She turned to leave. William lurched to his feet. Wait, there's more. His voice was desperate. The fire. I know about the fire. Emily stopped. Nathan's hand found her shoulder. What about the fire? William's face was pale, his eyes haunted. Stone talked about it when he was drunk. Said it was supposed to look like an accident. Said his men got careless. He swallowed hard. Said Blake's wife saw their faces before she died. That's why they couldn't let her live. That's why they killed the child too. Witnesses. Nathan moved so fast Emily barely saw it. One moment he was beside her. The next he had William pinned against the wall, forearm across his throat. Say that again. I'm sorry. Say it again. She saw them. William was crying now, sobbing. Rachel saw who started the fire. That's why they killed her. That's why they killed Rose. No witnesses. Nathan held him there for 3 more seconds. Then he released him and stepped back. His face was white. His hands shook. 5 years, he said, voice hollow. 5 years. Emily pulled him toward the door. They left William Harrison crying in his rented room, a broken man in a broken life. Outside, the cold air hit like a slap. Nathan stood on the street, staring at nothing. I thought it was my fault, he said. All this time, I thought if I'd just been there, if I'd come home sooner, if I'd... Emily wrapped her arms around him. He held her back and she felt the tremors running through his body. Rage and grief and 5 years of guilt finally breaking free. It wasn't your fault, she said into his chest. It was Stone. Only Stone. They stood there in the street as the sun set, 2 people holding each other against the coming dark. The frame of the present day intrudes here, gentle as snowfall. Nathan, 76 and tired, looks at his grandson Everett across the firelit room. That was the day everything changed, boy. The day we learned the truth about what Stone had done, about what he was planning to do. Everett's young face is solemn. Grandpa, that's awful. It was, but it taught me something important. Nathan leans forward. Sometimes the people who hurt us most are the ones hurting worse themselves. Your great-grandfather William wasn't evil. He was weak, and weakness ain't the same as evil. Did you forgive him? Your grandmother did. Took her years, but she did. Nathan's voice softens, and I learned to live with it. But first we had to survive what came next. He settles back in his chair and the years fall away again. The next days were a blur of preparation. Nathan contacted Deputy Miller, the one lawman in Broken Ridge, who wasn't in Stone's pocket. Miller was building a case, but he needed time. Weeks, maybe months. They didn't have months. We need federal authority, Samuel said one evening as they sat around the kitchen table. Maps spread before them, coffee going cold in tin cups. Someone Stone can't touch. Marshall and Helena, Nathan said. William Garrett, he's honest, has federal jurisdiction. Helena's 3 days' ride, Emily said, and Stone's watching the roads. Then we use the back trails, the ones Stone don't know about. They all looked at each other. Samuel spoke what they were all thinking. Someone has to go. Someone Stone won't expect. I'll go, Emily said. Absolutely not. Nathan's voice was sharp. Stone's watching you, watching Samuel. But me, Emily met Nathan's eyes. I'm just the bought bride, the scared girl. He won't expect me to do anything but cry and wait. Samuel nodded slowly. She's right, boss. Girls got sand. Nathan's face was a war between fear and pride. Finally, he nodded. If you're going, we prepare. Really prepare. The next 2 weeks were the hardest of Emily's life. Nathan trained her like he was preparing for war. Because he was. Survival skills. How to start a fire with flint and steel, even in wind. How to read tracks in snow. How to navigate by stars. How to treat a wound. How to survive if everything went wrong. Advanced riding, night riding, trusting the horse's eyes when she couldn't see. Emergency dismounts, evasion tactics. More shooting. Until she could hit 7 out of 10 targets at 50 yards. Until she could reload under pressure, fingers clumsy with cold and fear but still functional. You're ready, Nathan said at the end of the second week. But his eyes said he wished she wasn't. Wished she didn't have to be. The night before she left, a storm hit. Big one, Samuel said, reading the sky. Worst I've seen in years. Cattle, Nathan said. North pasture. They need to be moved. Boss, we can't. We don't have a choice. Storm hits while they're out there, we lose them all. Emily stood. I'll help. You ain't ready for this. Then teach me fast. An hour later, they rode out into the growing storm. Emily on Clementine, Nathan on his big Morgan stallion, Samuel on his reliable old gelding. 50 head of cattle needed moving before the blizzard buried them. The first hour was manageable. Keep the cattle grouped, chase down the stragglers, yell and wave and guide them toward shelter. The second hour, the storm hit in earnest. Wind screamed. Snow came horizontal. Emily couldn't see 20 feet ahead. The third hour was nightmare. Temperature plunged. Emily's face went numb. Her hands froze on the reins. Every muscle screamed with exhaustion. But she kept going because Nathan was counting on her. Because Samuel was counting on her. Because quitting wasn't an option anymore. When the last cow finally passed through the south pasture gate, Emily slumped in the saddle. Exhaustion hit like a hammer. Back at the house, Nathan half carried her inside. Samuel stoked the fire while Nathan pulled off Emily's frozen gloves, her boots rubbing warmth back into hands and feet. You shouldn't have come out there, Nathan said, his voice rough. I needed to help. You could have died. So could you. Emily looked at him. We're in this together, remember? Nathan didn't answer, just kept rubbing her hands until feeling returned in painful pins and needles. The storm howled outside, shaking the house. Samuel brought coffee. This is a bad one. Worst in years. We ain't going nowhere for a while. How long? Emily asked. Days, maybe a week if it keeps up. Days trapped in the house, with Nathan, with everything unsaid hanging between them. But Emily found she didn't mind. Not anymore. That night they sat by the fire. Samuel had gone to his room above the barn. Nathan and Emily were alone. Can I ask you something? Emily said. Anything. Rachel, what would she think of me? Nathan was quiet for a long time. When he spoke, his voice was soft. She'd like you, because you're strong, because you don't give up, because you rode into a blizzard to save cattle, even though you've only been on a horse for 2 months. He almost smiled. Rachel respected that kind of stubbornness. I'm not trying to replace her. I know. Nathan turned to face her. Rachel was my past, my first love, mother of my daughter. Nothing changes that. He reached out, touched her cheek. But you're my present. And maybe if we survive this, you could be my future. Emily's heart stuttered. Nathan, I ain't asking for anything. I ain't expecting anything. I just wanted you to know. His thumb traced her cheekbone. You matter, Emily. To me. More than I ever thought possible. She leaned into his touch. I'm scared. Of losing this. Of losing you. Everyone I've ever loved has left me. I ain't leaving. His voice was fierce. Whatever comes, I ain't leaving. You can't promise that. Watch me. He kissed her then. Not on the cheek this time. On the lips. Soft at first, then deeper. 5 years of loneliness poured out of him. 19 years of fear poured out of her. When they finally pulled apart, both of them were breathing hard. I've wanted to do that since the day you rode Clementine on your own, Nathan admitted. Why didn't you? Because you weren't ready. Because I wasn't ready. He stroked her hair. Because some things are worth waiting for. Emily smiled. Actually smiled. You're a patient man, Nathan Blake. When it matters. They sat together watching the fire, listening to the storm. For the first time since her mother died, Emily felt like she had come home. The storm broke on the fifth morning. Emily woke to silence. Not the howling wind, not the rattle of windows, but true silence. She went to the window and pulled back the curtain. The world was white, pristine, beautiful. And there on the ridge above the ranch sat a line of riders, 6 men on horseback, dark against the snow. At their head, unmistakable even at this distance, was Garrett Stone. Nathan, Emily's voice cut through the quiet. Nathan, wake up. He was beside her in seconds, still pulling on his shirt. He looked where she pointed. Get dressed, he said, his voice flat and hard. Get the rifle from the kitchen. Don't open the door for anyone. What are you going to do, Bum? Find out what he wants. Nathan pulled on his boots. Stay inside, Emily. I mean it. He was out the door before she could argue. Emily dressed quickly and found the Winchester. She positioned herself by the front window, where she could see but not be easily seen. Nathan walked into the yard and stopped, waiting. After a long moment, Stone rode down from the ridge, alone. His men stayed behind watching. Emily couldn't hear what they said, but she could see Nathan's body language, the way his fists clenched, the tension in his shoulders. Stone was talking, gesturing, smiling that thin, dangerous smile. Then Stone said something that made Nathan's whole body go rigid. Stone's eyes flicked toward the house, toward the window where Emily stood. He looked directly at her, and even through the glass across the distance, she felt the threat in that gaze. Then Stone winked, tipped his hat, turned his horse, and rode back up to his men. When Nathan came inside, his face was white with rage. What did he say? Emily grabbed his arm. Nathan, what did he say? He knows. Nathan's voice shook. He knows about your father, about what William told us. Emily's stomach dropped. How? Don't know, but he made it clear. If we talk to Deputy Miller, if we try to build a case, he'll have William killed. Make it look like an accident. Just like Rachel. He threatened my father. He threatened everyone. You mean Samuel Miller. Nathan's hands were fists. He's got men in the sheriff's office, men in the courts. He said even if we get him arrested, he'll be out in a week. And then he couldn't finish, didn't need to. Then he'll burn this house down with us in it, Emily whispered, just like before. Nathan pulled her close. I won't let that happen. How can you stop him? He owns everything, controls everything. We can trust each other. That's going to have to be enough. His arms tightened around her. I am not losing you. Not to Stone, not to anyone. Emily buried her face in his chest, breathing in the scent of him. Leather and wood smoke and safety. But for how long? That night, Emily made a decision. She waited until Nathan was asleep. Then she crept to his study and found paper, a pen. She wrote 2 letters. The first was to Nathan, an explanation, an apology. The second was to Garrett Stone, a surrender. If Stone wanted leverage, if he needed her to make Nathan give up the land, then she would offer herself. Trade her freedom for Nathan's life, for Samuel's, for her father's. It was the only way. She sealed both letters and hid them in her coat. But as she crept back toward her room, a voice stopped her in the darkness. Whatever you're planning, don't. Nathan stood in the doorway of his room. His face was in shadow, but she could hear the certainty in his voice. I know you, Emily. I know that look in your eyes. You're thinking of sacrificing yourself, thinking it'll save everyone else. Emily's hand went to the letters in her pocket. Nathan, no. He crossed to her in 3 strides. Listen to me. You are not a bargaining chip. You are not bait. You are my wife, and I will burn this whole territory to the ground before I let you walk into that monster's hands. He'll kill everyone we love. Then we kill him first. Nathan's eyes were fierce. Together, like we promised. Emily's resolve crumbled. She pulled the letters from her pocket and handed them to Nathan. He took them to the fireplace and burned them without reading them. They watched the paper curl and blacken until nothing remained but ash. We're still going to Helena, Nathan said. But different approach. You go, but not to surrender. To get the marshal. To bring federal law down on Stone's head so hard he never sees daylight again. When tomorrow night, midnight, before Stone realizes what we're doing. Emily nodded. Fear and determination warred in her chest. I'll be ready. The next day passed in a blur of final preparations. Samuel sent a carrier pigeon to Eleanor Brooks at the relay station, warning her that Emily was coming. Eleanor sent word back with directions and a promise of help. As darkness fell, they saddled Clementine. Samuel had packed food, water, and copies of all the evidence they'd gathered. Deputy Miller's documents, William's written testimony, everything they had. Nathan checked the Colt Peacemaker one more time before sliding it into Emily's saddlebag. If anything goes wrong, fire 3 shots. I'll hear them. How Helena's 3 days away. I'll hear them. His voice was iron. Don't try to be a hero. Just get to the marshal. Get him to come back with you. Nathan pulled her close. And come back to me. I will. Emily looked up at him. I love you, Nathan Blake. The words hung in the cold air between them. Nathan's eyes widened, then softened, with an emotion so deep it made her chest ache. I love you too, Emily. His voice was rough. Come back to me. I promise. She mounted Clementine. Nathan handed her the reins. Their fingers touched held. Whenever you're ready, he said, echoing the words from their wedding day. Not before. Emily turned the horse toward the mountains and rode into darkness. The first night was the longest. Every shadow looked like a man. Every sound was Stone's men closing in. Emily rode with her hand near the pistol, hard-hammering eyes straining in the moonlight. But no one came. By dawn, she reached Clearwater Creek. She followed it north as the sun rose, painting the snow in shades of gold and pink, beautiful and cold and empty. Midday brought Eleanor Brooks Station. The small cabin appeared through the trees like a blessing. Smoke curled from the chimney. A corral stood beside the barn. Emily dismounted on shaking legs and knocked. The woman who opened the door was tall and gray-haired, with eyes sharp as flint. She looked Emily up and down, then smiled. You must be Emily Blake. Samuel sent word ahead. How did you carry her, pigeon? Eleanor stepped aside. Come in, you look half dead. Inside, warmth embraced her. A pot of stew bubbled on the stove. Bread cooled on the counter. Simple fare, but it smelled like heaven. Eat, Eleanor commanded, pressing a bowl into Emily's hands. Then sleep. You've got another day's hard ride ahead of you. Emily ate without tasting exhaustion catching up to her all at once. Why are you helping me? Eleanor's smile faded. Because I know what it's like to fight for freedom. I escaped slavery in '53, came through the Underground Railroad, made it all the way to Montana. She refilled Emily's bowl. Now I help others escape. Runaway slaves, women fleeing bad men, anyone Stone tries to destroy. You know about Stone. Known about him for years. Watched him buy up land, destroy families, line his pockets with other people's pain. Eleanor's voice hardened. About time someone stopped him. I don't know if I can. You're taking on the most powerful man in Montana territory. That takes spine. Eleanor studied her. And from what Samuel tells me, you got plenty of that. Emily slept for 6 hours in a real bed. When she woke, a fresh horse was saddled and waiting. A big Morgan gelding, strong and fast. His name's Thunder, Eleanor said. Don't let the name fool you. He's steady as they come. She handed Emily a sealed letter. Give this to Marshal William Garrett in Helena. Tell him Eleanor Brooks sent you. He'll listen. Why are you trusting me with this? Because Samuel trusts Nathan Blake, and Nathan Blake trusts you. Eleanor squeezed her shoulder. That's good enough for me. Now go. Give that bastard Stone what he deserves. Emily rode hard all day. The mountains rose around her, steep and white and endless. Thunder was true to his name in reverse, steady and reliable, never faltering, even as the trail grew treacherous. As evening approached, she saw lights in the distance. Helena, she'd made it. Relief flooded through her so powerfully she nearly wept. Just another mile, just a little farther. Then a voice called from the darkness. Hold up there, ma'am. Emily's blood froze. A man stepped from the trees, then another, then a third, all of them armed, all of them watching her with predator's eyes. Stone's men. The leader was older with a scarred face and cold eyes. He grinned, showing yellow teeth. Well, well, Mr. Stone said you might try something stupid. Guess he was right. Emily's hand moved toward her saddlebag, toward the pistol. I wouldn't do that if I were you. The man's grin widened. 3 of us. 1 of you. And I'm a real good shot. Emily's mind raced. No escape. No help. Helena was so close, just lights in the distance, but it might as well have been on the moon. My husband knows I'm here, she said, trying to keep her voice steady. If I don't come back, your husband's got his own problems right now. The man laughed. Mr. Stone's having a chat with him as we speak. Probably already signed over the ranch. Was it true? Had Stone already won? Emily's heart sank. You're lying. Only one way to find out. Come with us nice and quiet. Maybe you live long enough to see him again. The man stepped forward, reaching for Thunder's reins. Emily made her choice. She kicked Thunder hard. The horse reared hooves, slashing air. The man stumbled back with a shout. Emily drew the Colt and fired. The shot went wide, but the sound was enough. The other horses panicked. Men shouted. Chaos erupted. Emily kicked Thunder again. The horse bolted forward. Gunshots cracked behind her. Something burned across her left arm. A bullet graze. Blood bloomed hot and fast, but she didn't stop. Couldn't stop. She leaned low over Thunder's neck and rode. Rode like death itself was chasing her. Because it was. The lights of Helena grew closer. Closer. She burst onto the main street like a demon from hell, Thunder's hooves throwing sparks from the frozen ground. People scattered. Dogs barked. Someone screamed. Emily didn't slow down. Straight down the main street. Past the saloons, past the hotel, straight to the building with the U.S. Marshal sign over the door. She threw herself from the saddle, staggered, caught herself. Blood ran down her arm, dripping onto the snow. She pushed through the door. A man sat at a desk. Gray mustache, federal badge, eyes that had seen everything. "Help me," Emily gasped. "Please, I need—" The room tilted. The floor rushed up to meet her. Then darkness. When Emily woke, she was lying on a cot. Her arm was bandaged. Her head throbbed. A man sat in a chair beside her, the same man from the desk. "Easy there, you took a bullet." His voice was calm, professional. "Gray's lost some blood, but you'll live. Stone's men, gone, ran off when they saw you heading for my office." He leaned forward. "I'm Marshal William Garrett. You want to tell me what this is about?" Emily sat up despite the pain. "Garrett Stone, he's a murderer, land thief. He killed my husband's first wife and daughter 5 years ago. Now he's trying to kill us and take our ranch." She pulled the documents from her coat with shaking hands. Eleanor's letter, the evidence Nathan had gathered, William's testimony. Garrett read in silence. His face grew darker with each page. "This is serious," he said finally. "If half of this is true, it's all true. Every word." Emily grabbed his arm. "Please, my husband is in danger. Stone's men said he's probably already been forced to sign over the ranch. If you don't help us, I need to verify this evidence, interview witnesses, follow proper procedure. There's no time for procedure. There's always time for procedure, Mrs. Blake." His voice was firm but not unkind. "If I ride into Broken Ridge without proper authority, Stone's lawyers will tear the case apart. He'll walk free, and you'll be worse off than before." "Then what do I do?" "You wait. I'll send telegrams tonight. Get authorization from the territorial governor. Assemble a team." He stood. "If everything you've told me is true, we'll have Stone in chains within a week." "A week," Emily's voice cracked. "My husband might not have a week." "Then pray he's as tough as you are." That night, Emily sat at the window of a small hotel room the marshal had arranged. She couldn't sleep, couldn't rest. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Nathan on his knees with a gun to his head. At dawn, a knock rattled the door. "Marshal Garrett, open up." Emily grabbed the pistol Nathan had given her. "Who is it?" "Marshal Garrett." She opened the door. Garrett stood there with 2 other men, federal badges gleaming on their chests. "We ride in an hour," Garrett said. "Got authorization from the governor himself. Stone's finished." Relief hit Emily so hard her knees nearly buckled. "Thank you." "Don't thank me yet. We still got to get there. And from what my scouts tell me, Stone's men are watching the roads. There's another way. Mountain passes. I can show you. Then you're coming with us." They rode out of Helena at first light. 12 federal marshals armed and ready. Emily led them through the back trails she'd used coming, retracing her path. Every mile felt like 10, every hour like a day. Emily's arm ached where the bullet had grazed her. Her whole body was one massive bruise from days in the saddle. But she kept riding. On the second night, they made camp in the foothills above Broken Ridge. They could see the town below, lights flickering in the darkness. "We go in at dawn," Garrett said. "Surprise him before he knows we're coming." "What about my husband?" Emily asked. "We'll find him." Garrett's voice was reassuring. "If he's still alive, we'll find him." If, that word haunted Emily through the sleepless night. Dawn came gray and cold. They rode down into the valley. Thornwood Ranch appeared through the morning mist. Emily's heart seized. The barn was still standing. The house was intact, but riders filled the yard, 6 of them, Stone's men, and in the center, on his knees in the snow, was Nathan. Garrett Stone stood over him with a pistol pressed to Nathan's temple. "No!" Emily kicked her horse forward. "Wait!" Marshal Garrett shouted, but she was already gone. She rode into the yard like vengeance itself, like fury made flesh. "Let him go!" Stone turned, his eyes widened, then narrowed. "Mrs. Blake, I was wondering when you'd show up." He pressed the pistol harder against Nathan's head. "Get off that horse now, or I put a bullet in your husband's brain." Emily's hand trembled on the reins. Nathan looked up at her. His face was bruised, blood crusted on his lip, but his eyes were clear. "Emily, don't," he said, voice hoarse. "Run. Get out of here." "Shut up." Stone cocked the pistol. "Your wife and I are having a conversation." Emily dismounted slowly, hands raised. "That's better." Stone smiled. "Now where's Deputy Miller's evidence? I know you took it to Helena." Emily kept her voice steady. "It's too late, Stone. The federal marshals know everything. They're on their way right now." Stone's smile flickered. "You're bluffing." "Am I?" From the tree line, riders emerged, Marshal Garrett, his deputies, a dozen armed men with federal badges gleaming in the morning light. Stone's face went white. Garrett's voice rang across the yard like a judge's gavel. "Garrett Stone, you're under arrest for murder, land fraud, conspiracy, and attempted murder. Drop the weapon." Stone didn't move. The pistol stayed pressed to Nathan's temple. Emily could see his finger tightening on the trigger. "It's over," she said. "You lose." "No," Stone's voice was barely a whisper. "No, I don't lose. I never lose." He raised the pistol. Nathan moved, threw himself backward, knocking into Stone's legs. The pistol fired. The shot went wild, whistling past Emily's head. Emily dove for Nathan, covering him with her body. Garrett's men swarmed in like a wave. Stone tried to run. He made it 3 steps before 2 deputies tackled him into the snow. "Get off me!" Stone screamed. "Do you know who I am? I'll have your badges. I'll save it for the judge." Garrett hauled him to his feet. "Get this piece of garbage out of my sight." They dragged Stone away, still screaming, still threatening. His voice faded into the distance. Emily knelt in the snow, cradling Nathan's head in her lap. "Are you hurt?" Nathan talked to me. "I'm fine." He reached up, touched her face. "You came back. I promised I would. You went to Helena. You did it." His voice was full of wonder. "You saved us." "We saved us. Together." The tears to stream down her face. "Together." Nathan pulled her down, held her close. They stayed like that as the sun rose over Thornwood Ranch, 2 people who had found each other in the darkest of circumstances and refused to let go. Samuel emerged from the barn, limping worse than usual. Stone's men had beaten him, but he was grinning. "Damn, Mrs. Blake. Didn't know you had it in you." Emily laughed through her tears. "Neither did I." The trial began in April. Spring had come to Montana territory, melting the snow and revealing the green beneath. Thornwood Ranch was coming back to life. And in Helena, justice was finally being served. The courtroom was packed, every seat filled, people standing along the walls. Everyone wanted to see Garrett Stone brought low. Emily testified first. She told them everything. The arranged marriage, the overheard conversation, the silver conspiracy, Stone's plan to murder Nathan and take the land. Nathan testified next. About Rachel, about Rose, about 5 years of guilt and grief, about finally learning the truth. "Stone murdered my family," he said, voice steady and clear, "to steal my land, and he would have murdered my wife too if she hadn't stopped him." William Harrison testified, sober and shaking. He told them everything Stone had said about the fire, about Rachel seeing the men's faces, about how they couldn't leave witnesses. The trapper testified about the gray mare he'd seen the night of the fire. Stone's foreman broke under questioning and confessed to starting the fire on Stone's orders. The evidence was overwhelming. The jury deliberated for less than 2 hours. When they returned, the foreman stood. "We, the jury, find this defendant, Garrett James Stone, guilty on all counts." Stone sat motionless as the verdict was read. His face was gray. His eyes were empty. The man who had owned half of Montana territory was broken. The judge turned to Stone. "Garrett James Stone, you have been found guilty of murder, conspiracy to commit murder, land fraud, bribery, and attempted murder. Do you have anything to say before I pass sentence?" Stone was silent for a long moment. Then he laughed. A hollow, broken sound. "You think this changes anything? There's silver under that land. Millions of dollars worth. Someone else will come for it. Someone worse than me." "That's enough." The judge's voice was ice. "Garrett James Stone, I hereby sentence you to hang by the neck until dead. Sentence to be carried out in 30 days. The courtroom erupted. Stone's lawyer shouted objections. Stone himself slumped in his chair as all fight finally gone. Emily grabbed Nathan's hand. It was over. Really, truly over. They didn't go to the hanging. On the day Stone died swinging from a rope in Helena, Emily and Nathan stayed at Thornwood. They worked the land. They tended the animals. They lived. That evening they sat on the porch as the sun set. "Do you feel different?" Emily asked. "Now that he's gone." Nathan was quiet for a long moment. "I thought I'd feel satisfied, avenged, something. And you don't. I feel empty. Rachel and Rose are still dead. No amount of justice brings them back." Emily took his hand. "No, but maybe now you can let them rest." Nathan nodded slowly. "I've been thinking about the graves. They're up on the North Ridge where the old house used to be. It's lonely up there." "What are you thinking?" "I want to plant a garden around the graves. Flowers, trees, something living." He looked at her. "Would you help me?" "Of course." The next morning they started. Side by side they dug in the earth, planted seeds, built a low stone wall around the two simple headstones. Rachel Elizabeth Blake, beloved wife and mother, Rose Blake, forever our angel. When they finished, Nathan knelt beside his daughter's grave. He touched the stone. "I'm sorry I wasn't there, Rose. I'm sorry I couldn't save you." His voice was barely a whisper. "But I promise I'll spend the rest of my life trying to be the man you would have wanted me to be." He stayed there for a long time. Emily waited. When he finally rose, his eyes were wet, but his shoulders were straighter. "Let's go home," he said. "Yes, let's." Summer came. The garden they'd planted began to bloom. Wildflowers in shades of purple and yellow. Young trees reaching toward the skinny, life growing from the place where death had taken everything. And Emily felt life growing inside her too. She'd been sick for a week. Tired, nauseous, unable to keep down breakfast. Nathan kept insisting she see the doctor, but she already knew it in her bones. One afternoon while Nathan was checking the cattle she rode to town, Dr. Morrison examined her with gentle hands and kind eyes. "Well, Mrs. Blake," he said, smiling, "I'd say congratulations are in order. You're going to have a baby, about 2 months along, I'd estimate." The world tilted. A baby. She was going to have a baby. Nathan's baby. Their baby. "Are you all right?" the doctor asked. Emily pressed her hand to her stomach. "I'm wonderful. I'm absolutely wonderful." She rode home in a daze. When she arrived, Nathan was on the porch. He took one look at her face and stood. "What did the doctor say?" "What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong." Emily walked up the steps. She took his hands in hers. "Nathan, I need to tell you something." "You're scaring me." "Don't be scared." She guided his hand to her stomach, pressed it flat. "We're going to have a baby." Nathan's face went blank, then white, then something else entirely. Joy so pure it transformed him. "A baby." His voice cracked. Yes, a baby." He said it again like he couldn't believe it. Then he lifted her off her feet and spun her around, laughing. "You're giving me a second chance," he said when he finally set her down. "At everything, at being a husband, a father, at having a family." Tears streamed down Emily's face. "You're giving me the same thing. I never thought I'd have this. A home, a husband who loves me, a child. You have all of it." He kissed her hard and fierce. "You have everything." December came. The first snow fell, and on the first day of the month, Emily's water broke at midnight. The next 12 hours were the longest of her life. Nathan held her hand through every contraction. Samuel rode to town for the doctor. The midwife arrived and took charge with the calm authority of a woman who had delivered 100 babies. "You're doing fine, Mrs. Blake. Just breathe." "I can't." "You can. You've done harder things than this." Emily thought about the blizzard, the ride to Helena, standing up to Stone with a gun in her hand. The midwife was right. At noon, with one final push, the baby arrived. A girl. "She's beautiful," the midwife said, placing the squirming, crying infant in Emily's arms. "Perfect and healthy." Emily looked down at her daughter. 10 fingers, 10 toes, a thatch of dark hair, eyes squeezed shut against the light. "Nathan," she said, "look at her." He knelt beside the bed. Tears streamed down his weathered face. "She's perfect. Emily, she's absolutely perfect." "What should we name her?" Nathan was quiet for a moment. "I was thinking, maybe Grace." "Grace? Grace Elizabeth Blake. Because she's our hope, our second chance. And Elizabeth for your mother." Tears spilled down Emily's cheeks. "It's perfect. She's perfect." Like her mother, they sat together, the three of them. Winter sun streaming through the window. A family, their family. Born from pain and loss and darkness, but real and whole and beautiful. Christmas Day came, and with it, Grace's christening. The whole town attended. The church was packed. Emily stood at the altar where she'd been married 14 months ago. Everything was different now. The new reverend sprinkled water on Grace's forehead. "I baptize you, Grace Elizabeth Blake, in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit." The baby didn't cry, just blinked up at the congregation with wide, curious eyes. Nathan stood beside Emily, arm around her waist, pride written across his face. In the pews, Samuel dabbed at his eyes. Eleanor Brooks had come from her relay station. Even Rachel's parents, who had traveled all the way from Virginia, sat in the front row weeping with joy. And in the back alone stood William Harrison. Emily had invited him, just for this, just for one day. He hadn't tried to approach her, hadn't tried to speak, but he was there. After the service, he came forward. His hands were steady, his eyes were clear. "Emily," his voice was quiet. "I won't stay long. I needed." He stopped, started again. "She's beautiful. Grace. She's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. Thank you. I know I don't deserve to be here. I know I don't deserve to see her. But thank you for letting me come." Emily looked at her father, really looked. He was thin but sober, broken but trying. "Would you like to hold her?" William's eyes went wide. Are you sure?" "No, but I'm trying." She handed him the baby. William cradled Grace like she was made of glass. Tears streamed down his weathered face. "Hello, little one," he whispered. "I'm your grandfather. I'm not a good man, but I'm going to try to be. For you. For your mother." Grace grabbed his finger, held tight. William laughed, a broken, beautiful sound. Emily watched her father and her daughter, the past and the future. Maybe forgiveness wasn't a destination. Maybe it was a journey, one step at a time. She wasn't there yet, but she was on the road, and that was enough. In the Thornwood Great Room, 41 years later, the fire burns low. Nathan Blake, 76 years old, looks at his grandson across the dimming light. "So, you and Grandma had a happy ending," Everett says. "We had a right ending," Nathan corrects gently. "Not the same as happy. We worked hard. We fought hard. We lost people along the way. Your great-grandfather William died in 1910. Never drank another drop after that Christmas, but the years of whiskey had taken their toll." He pauses, remembering. "But we built something real, something that lasted. You're proof of that, boy. Your mama Grace, your baby sister coming soon. This ranch still standing after all these years." Everett leans forward, eyes serious. "Grandpa, what's the most important thing you learned?" Nathan thinks for a long moment. When he speaks, his voice carries the weight of 7 decades lived fully. That a man ain't measured by how he starts, he's measured by what he does when everything's lost. He looks at his grandson. "I lost Rachel. I lost Rose. I lost 5 years to guilt I didn't deserve to carry. But I didn't lose myself." His voice drops lower. "And when Emily came scared and angry and trapped, I could have made her a prisoner. Instead, I gave her a choice, and she chose me. That's the real miracle, boy. Not surviving, choosing to live. From the kitchen, Emily's voice calls out, "Dinner's ready." Grace appears in the doorway, her son at her side. Samuel, ancient and bent, but still alive, shuffles in from the barn. The family gathers around the table as they have for 41 years. Nathan stands and offers his hand to Everett. "Come on, boy, let's eat. And tomorrow I'll teach you to ride." Everett's eyes light up. Nathan smiles. The same smile Emily fell in love with all those years ago. After all, every man needs to know how to be free. The old man leads his grandson to the table. Through the window, the Montana sun sets over Thornwood Ranch, painting the snow in shades of gold and red. The garden on the North Ridge blooms even in winter evergreens, standing watch over two graves, a testament to love lost and love found. Emily catches Nathan's eye across the table. He winks at her. She smiles back. After 41 years, some things never change. The way he looks at her, the way she trusts him, the way they chose each other every single day. Outside, the wind whispers through the valley. Inside, a family gives thanks for second chances, for choices freely made, for love that endures when everything else falls away. And somewhere in the growing darkness, the past rests easy at last. Rachel and Rose watching over the family that carries on their legacy. William Harrison redeemed through his granddaughter's mercy. Garrett Stone gone to whatever judgment awaits men who mistake power for worth. The table fills with laughter, with stories, with the sound of a life well lived. Nathan Blake closes his eyes and gives thanks. For Emily, who chose him. For Grace, who gave him hope. For Everett, who carries the future. For this moment, this family, this home built from ashes and determination and love. He had been given a second chance, and he had not wasted it. The fire crackles, the family eats, and Thornwood Ranch stands firm against the night, a beacon of light in the Montana darkness. A testament to the truth that Nathan Blake learned all those years ago, that a man is not measured by how he starts, but by what he builds when everything is lost, by the choices he makes when the easy path leads to darkness, by the love he gives when the world says there is none left to give. Nathan Blake started as a broken man. He ended as a legend, and his story passed from grandfather to grandson on a winter night by firelight will live forever in the hearts of those who understand. That redemption is possible, that love can heal, that justice, though slow, is worth fighting for, that sometimes the cage you're given can become the key that sets you free. The old man opens his eyes, squeezes his wife's hand across the table, and knows with every fiber of his being that he is home.